Boom. And we are live. Right.
All right.
Let's give people 2 or 3 minutes so they can join. If you're joining us, welcome to the session. We'll start in about let's say 3 minutes. let's see. Let me have a look. So, there you go. Let me see. Everything is checked. If everything is running smoothly here. All right. That is running live on X. Welcome everyone. Let us know in the comments that you've joined. Let us also know if you hear us well. That's super important. If there's any echo, I want to make sure I fix this before we start. And that's running. Excellent. All right. Say hello in the chat. Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay. Live on YouTube as well. LinkedIn is a little bit behind, but should come up. Is everything okay for you on Instagram?
Oh, my Instagram. Yeah. We're should be live on the Revenue Academy as well.
Awesome. Excellent. All right, we'll give it a start in about a minute. So grab something to drink, to eat, and we'll get started. Cool. So let me just spread the news to a couple of folks. Live. Go. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session. Welcome to this episode. We will start very, very shortly. Let us know that you're here with a little message in the comments. Let us know if you hear us well or not, so we can fix this before we start. Welcome if you're joining from YouTube or X or LinkedIn. Let us know which platform you're in, which one you're watching this show from. Excellent. Cool. All right. I think we're ready to roll. Rob?
I think so. Let's get going.
Let's get going. So welcome to the Startup Kitchen Show, episode number 9. And if you're new to this show, it's a show where we talk with builders, founders, entrepreneurs, but also investors, advisor, or people who have exited, sold their businesses. And the idea is to share the knowledge like a cooking recipe. I'm your host, Riley Riles. I'm a startup advisor and investor. And today is a bit of a special episode because I have a little connection with our guest. I've known our guest for a while now. We had a chance of doing a couple of boxing sessions together.
Yeah, remember
But
that.
yes, but today
Give our
we
coach
are,
a little shout out there.
yeah, exactly. Shout out to our coach. But today we will be talking about startup and businesses. How's it going, Rob?
Doing just fine, my man. Thank you very much for having me on. Looking forward to having a chat with you. I love what you're doing with this stuff, and like I said, I've been following what you've been doing on LinkedIn and Instagram for a little while, and going through the startup phase of my own venture now. The stuff that you're talking about is so much more relevant than more now than ever. Listening to some of the things you talk about, so I'm looking forward to having a chat with you now.
Awesome. It's exactly why I have built this show, to share concrete and actionable knowledge, and also to spread that knowledge and experience among startups and between founders and startups, investors and startups, or subject matter experts with other builders. So that's great. If you watch the show, and I know you have, you know that the number one question I ask
Mhm.
is connected to the name of the show, the Startup Kitchen Show. So Rob,
Mhm.
what is your favorite dish?
My favorite dish. Okay, that's changed a lot. Well, not really that much. I was in Spain in September, and I would say the jamon pork probably would be my favorite dish right now. But I would never say
Okay,
no to a good steak.
nice. So what is the Himon, your favorite dish now? What's special about it? Or how do you like it?
Well, it's the cured ham. It's just made in a certain way that it's so unique to Spain. I think Madrid does it really well. It's very well known in Madrid and in Barcelona. That's where I had it, and just the tapas style. It's not a huge heavy meal. You sit down with a glass of wine, some good cheese, some good crackers, some good jamon ham. It's I don't know for me as far as a light meal, it just doesn't get any better than that.
Bingo, there you go. That's exactly the kind of answers I was expecting to get. Um, Food is a universal language, and
Hmm.
we had a lot of experience trying it out together. And
Yeah.
I believe it's one of the best ways to sort of share knowledge with people using food metaphors. And so
Hmm.
during that little time that we have together, I want to share the ingredients and the recipe of your story, of your business, of your startups
Hmm.
to our audience. And hopefully they'll be able to sort of replicate that or adapt it to their own recipe and learn from that.
Sounds great.
Okay, let's go. So the first thing that we want to know, because my audience probably don't know who you are,
Mhm.
what is your origin story? Who's Rob? What is your origin story?
Well, I mean, I guess I can tell you the short story. I grew up on the East Coast. Um, yeah, I just grew up outside, like the millennial story, right? You're growing up mostly outside, had the unique ability to have a childhood without the internet, without cell phones. So we had to use our imagination back then. But yeah, being outside, I grew up in Ontario till I was 14 years old, and I moved out with my family to Vancouver Island, which is where I currently live after a year or so in Montreal. That's where we bumped into each other. So in terms of my business background, I have a background in international business and finance. I have a master's in finance. I didn't really use that much. I got out of school with that degree in 2008. So we all know what happened in 2008. So it kind of created a bit of a situation where if you wanted a job, you had to work your way up. You had to basically take whatever you could get, especially in Vancouver at the time. So kind of moved my way up in marketing, sales, you name it. I've sort of done it, um, back then. And then I got into something similar to what I've sort of started now with Growth Pilot. It's more on the customer side of things, but this was before software as a service, so it was mostly still support. So I've
Hmm.
had, since then I've had this sort of unique ability to see how SaaS has sort of changed the landscape. And obviously with AI, we can get into that a little bit, but I think, the jury is out on how that's going to be different in a few years. But at least 10 years ago when SaaS started coming out, the support side and the success side started to really become apparent, why they're different and why they're so important separately. So, over the last 10 years, I worked with a startup in the supply chain industry and sort of got my feet wet into SaaS, got my feet wet into project management, customer success, marketing, sales, you name it, anything that's really post sale. So for the last 10 years, I've been an executive in customer success, building, that company from the ground up or contributing to it. And, a lot of those learnings I'm hoping to take forward into Growth Palette to sort of get more into customer success and, why that post sale is so important, why managing your clients properly is so important for revenue growth. And honestly, a lot of companies, even if you're, 10 years, 20 years, doesn't matter if you're a mature company, a lot of these companies don't really, for lack of better words, do it well. or it's non-existent. So that's kind of where I'm hoping to add a bit of impact.
Fascinating. I love a lot of things that you said, and I want to sort of dive back to that.
Mhm.
Um, so you said, and clarify me if I'm wrong, but you don't come from a technical background.
Yeah, I would say I have an aptitude for tech. I've had to learn it. It was just that unique position where in 2005 when Facebook first came out, and YouTube and all those services that we know today. Prior to that, I mean, that was my first year of university when all these things started coming out. So I've sort of had to learn it, from the ground up. But I would, call myself more of a technical guy than most, just because I've had to, being in customer success, working with startups, I've had to learn the product side of the business, and so that gets you into the details. It gets you into the the code and understanding how algorithms work and all these types of things. I would say that I'm more technical than most, but I did appreciate my background, without a cell phone, without internet, because it's really cool to see both worlds, right? Whereas you're a little younger, you may not really know what it was like before that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's probably going to shock a couple of people hearing that you grew up before the internet era and the social media era. I
Yeah,
think we
sounds
probably
old.
we probably lost like a quarter of our audience right now.
Yeah. Hey, well, it's a unique perspective, right?
It is. Absolutely, it is. So yeah, so you don't come from the traditional technical background. I
Mhm,
would say slightly more from the sales and product side of
mhm.
things.
Yeah.
And and you did your career into supply chain.
Yeah, that's where I've been the last 10, 11 years, is working supply chain, working in software consulting and building a SaaS product for the last 10 years. And that's sort of what's kind of given me the expertise that I roll into customer success. And I could say the expertise and also the appreciation for why it's so important. Because now we're working with a lot of large companies, and I have in the past working with a lot of large companies, and you really appreciate not just the tech side of it, but there's people behind the tech, right? There's always people that are using your product, and people can dive into tech as much as they want to, but if they don't understand the psychology around adoption, around change management, around why people choose to use these systems or this technology, if you don't understand that, then you're not going to be that successful. So that's sort of where I believe there's that old school thinking of, let's take a step back from tech for a second, appreciate people, appreciate psychology, but then also have the aptitude to know that you do have to automate a lot of your systems. You do have to adopt tech, and I think it's just that best of both worlds sort of approach. um, so that's kind of where I got from what I sort of picked up from my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said all the nice keywords, customer success,
Mhm,
making sure that you're building something for people and with the people, and that's
mhm,
something very, very important that we tend to forget in the startup world. So
mhm,
you came from that sort of traditional way of building software.
mhm,
Is definitely something you can capitalize on to in sorry the I would say the modern way, the modern
mhm,
software ways, and all these kind of things.
mhm.
Um, what is it that you like what is it that you liked in your career working in this industry?
I think what brought me to where I am now is mostly working with people. And again, I go back to that as building relationships. I used to travel a lot before COVID. I spoke at a number of conferences all over the States and Europe. And I enjoy that aspect of it. I think you know building a good network of people that are passionate about what they do, becoming a thought leader, sharing your opinion is so much more fun than just sitting behind a computer and not talking to people. And that's sort of where I go back to maybe looking at the hybrid style or the remote style. I've been working remote for the past 5 years, and I want to go back to the office. I mean, I'm probably unique in that way. Like I really enjoy that atmosphere of going back into the office, dressing up, being around people that share enthusiasm, for what they do. And I hope that doesn't kind of go away, is that human connection. So I would say, working on multiple projects, I love having a bit of diversity, but mostly it's being around people, it's contributing, it's building something, whether it's from the ground up or coming in as a project catalyst of changing a process that's broken, and analyzing why it's broken, fixing it, and seeing the results. I've kind of glossed over a number of things, but I think what I'm probably reminiscing of what I missed the most over the past 5 years, and it's really just been the travel and the human connection, and and sort of being around people from a networking perspective. That's something that I really enjoy.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I can only agree to everything that you're saying. I love I love the African proverb. It takes an entire village to raise a child,
Mhm.
and I like to say it takes an entire community to raise a business.
Yeah.
And so often I see founders are playing too solo or too
Mhm.
lonely, and they
Yeah.
tend to forget that success of a business relies just as much on the founder and the founding team as
Mhm.
the network and the community around it. And so the fact that you have developed that skill of going out there and building connections and building network, which is also the reason why you're here today on this podcast, is because you
Mhm.
built that connection with me, and it compounded what 2 years later
Yeah. Yeah, you,
is
you
something.
can't do anything by yourself. I think people tend to want to go dark mode. They'll bury themselves in work and their house. And it's like, well, first of all, you're not happy. Humans were never meant to be, in solitude. It's
Yeah.
good for a while, but if you think that it's helping, unless you're just burying yourself in work and you are making progress, but being in solitude alone is, that alone is not going to do anything for you. You have to either, do it with purpose, but understand that, going out and meeting people, you and I are part of a couple of the same networking groups in Montreal. And, I would say when I went to Montreal and I didn't know anybody, that was one of the best things I could have done. Staying in my house, working, great. That's good. That's going to get you some progress. But going out and meeting people in the community, building relationships, doing podcasts, that's such a way to leverage success. You can get out and talk to people. Maybe you can make a couple of different business deals in one dinner, where you would take a month to get that business writing emails. So, I hope that part of it is not lost, and where we're going with with technology. But that's definitely something that I look back on and hope that it continues.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. It's one of the most important soft skills that one
Mhm.
needs to develop. It's so undervalued, and it's something that you can really capitalize on. You can build a startup and it fails.
Mhm.
But if you build a network, you can always use it for all your future projects and sort of challenges and adventures,
Mhm.
whatever that you have in your life. So
Mhm.
I 100% agree with you. I think this is one of the first ingredients that we can share today with the
Mhm.
audience is like work on your human to human connections, work on your startup, work on your network. Sorry. Um, it's definitely something that will be worth it. I want to quickly pause for a second, welcome everyone who's joining. We're getting more and more viewers. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the Startup Kitchen Show, episode number 9. We are with Rob. This is live, so you can interact with us. You can comment with us. You can ask questions to me or my guest. Welcome to the Startup Kitchen Show. So yeah, Rob. So what happened? How did you get into the full startup slash building mode? What was the event? What happened that made you sort of jump to the next side of
Um,
the river?
I don't know if I think a lot of people in your community and people are watching now, after a while, you kind of get tired of building something that you're not overly passionate about. And I think for some people, that's fine. Being in
Mm.
a position, and I've done it basically my entire career, and I did enjoy it. But at the same time, whether you want to talk about generating wealth, you want to talk about you know having something to retire on, because it is getting a bit weird out there with what's happening in the next 20 years. Like, should you have something to fall back on if things look a little differently in 5, 10 years. So I mean, I'd be lying if that didn't play a bit of a role in trying to have a bit more control over my future. But at the same time, the things that I've learned in the last, say, 15 years working, customer success, marketing, sales, I've definitely learned a lot that I can contribute to, especially when I see the gaps that are out there today. So, you recognize a gap, and that's really, what all founders really should be striving towards is, how can I add value to what's currently out there? It's how do I generate value? How do I transfer value from my experience to maybe what other people are trying to build, and things that I've learned in the past, applying it over the past 10 years in a leadership position. So I think there's been a lot of factors, but it's mostly just been, every person I think has a time where they're saying, okay, now I'm ready, to finally get out of the rat race a little bit. I'm finally ready to sort of make a move on my own. Because I think if you're that type of entrepreneurial person, you always have that inside of you, and you're always thinking, when's the time that I can actually do it? And you're always
Mm.
waiting for a time. And sometimes it gets to the point where it's like, okay, now I just got to make the move. If I'm ever going to do it, you got to make a decision at some point.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
And so the thing that I always want to know is, um, what is the environment of the builder, of the founder? So do you have in your surrounding, like your first layer in your
Mhm.
environment, other entrepreneurs, other builders?
Yeah, I would say the majority of my friend group are more of the entrepreneurial sort of builder mindset. There's some that sort of went on to become doctors, lawyers, you name it, working in finance. But I think you are a product of the 5 people that you're around. And I think I believe in that. I think it's pretty obvious when you step back and think of it. Like you have some relationships that drain you, some relationships that rejuvenate you, and give you the uh, uh, I guess what word am I looking for? The inspiration.
Yeah,
So I think,
energy givers. Yeah.
yeah. So everybody has their friend group. I still have my friend group from high school, along with new friends in Vancouver, Montreal. I like making friends wherever I go, but the people that are around you all the time, I think you naturally gravitate towards those people. Like we talked about the importance of going on networking events, and being around people. And if you do that, you will naturally gravitate towards people who are making you better, who are giving you inspiration, giving you ideas. And these are the kinds of people that you want to be around. And I think, everybody has that blend of old, people that you've had relationships for 20 years. And I think those are extremely important. Not every relationship it's not all a transaction, right? Where some people, it's like, hey, what are you giving me today? If you can't provide value that day, you're gone. I think that's so transactional. I think it's extremely short-sighted. But I think if you're doing the right things, naturally you will put yourself around people that you are learning from and that inspire you. And I think that's kind of where I see myself now.
I fully agree to everything that you're saying. I see a lot of young founders, and by young I don't mean necessarily their age, but their level of experience in entrepreneurship. And the way I spot them is because they are really short-term focused,
Mhm.
and if things don't yield results in just a couple of weeks or 1, 2, 3 months, they don't want to try it.
Mhm.
And building things like a network or just a solid group of friends or people you can talk to and ask for help
Mhm.
can't be built in just a couple of days or a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. I
It's
mean, look at the crypto crash right now, right? Like that should, I mean, people got exponentially rich, generational wealth sort of deal. But a lot of people, like that's, a very small amount of people that were actually able to take advantage of it. Whereas a lot of people are
Mm,
now finding out, like, yeah, maybe I can't trust it to get me rich overnight. Maybe I should go back to the equities and put it in the S&P. And over 20 years, you're making constant growth. I think that's a perfect analogy of it, right? Like I guess you can have an overnight success. You can have that moment of luck if you invest in certain things. But if you look back at the importance of seeing it long term in the bigger picture,
mm.
you've seen so many more success stories that way. So if you're playing the percentages, put your chips where the percentages are the highest. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. And you can see that also with lottery winners.
Hmm.
There's a non-negligible portion of lottery winners who not just lose all the money they earned, but end
Hmm.
up in debt, so negative
Hmm.
to where they were because of that overnight success
Yeah.
without any of the learnings.
Hmm.
Because all it took them, and I'm putting quotes here, was filling a little piece of paper with and putting numbers and then spending what, $1, $2, I don't know how much it cost, and
Hmm.
then ending up with the big check with zero of the learnings and
Hmm.
zero of the sweat and the pain and all that experience that you need to really accumulate to make sure that you can make sorry, you can make it sustain. There's, I think it was Shamat. I'm gonna mispronounce his name, but one of those famous investors in Silicon Valley, during a
Hmm.
conference, he said, um, if it takes 1 year for a company to go to 0 to 100 million, it will take them 1 year to go back to zero. If it
Hmm.
takes 10 years to a company to get to 100 million, it's probably going to sustain them for 10 years as well. So the
Hmm.
faster you reach the top, the faster you can get back to the ground or the bottom. So
Yeah, it's like you
yeah.
look at companies and you look at, say, Market Watch, and I've been investing for a couple of years now and looking at, it's been a fun ride, not heading into this bear market, but you look at the intrinsic value, and that's why, sometimes if you have little intrinsic value, and that's where the Mag 7, a lot of these AI companies, they're feeling the bubble now because there's no like value that there used to be, in companies used to have assets, used to have revenue, used to have these things that we call value, and now it's basically just you know the future, looking at, okay, what can these guys do, like what's the industry going to do, and that's so much different than the way it used to be. And I don't want to get back into like, oh, I wish he was back in the old days, because I'm not that old. But I do think that you should still, and just to pair the analogy that you were making, is like there has to be a foundation, there has to be something, because if there's nothing, then it can just poof, blow up in a second. Then you have nothing to show for it. There's no assets, there's no learnings, there's no experience, there's no networking, it's just gone. So I mean, if I had one way to do it, obviously people like quick money, no, but nobody's gonna say no to that. But if you're looking at the percentage of like how much of a chance do you have to just do it the right way of building a foundation, learning, and doing it over time, versus finding this quick, get rich quick scheme, that's probably never going to work out. If it does, it could go to zero just as easily.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I think we cannot emphasize enough on how important it is to really take the time to get the learnings, get the recipe. I like to say building the muscle memory so that you can do it again. Because the first idea rarely works. But if you build that muscle memory and it doesn't work for the first time, for the second time, for the third time, you'll be able to just do it again and do it again faster and just get back on your feet, build resilience, anti-fragility, and all these good, juicy notions that we like.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Welcome to all the people joining. This is the Startup Kitchen Show, episode number 9, live with Rob. Let us know in the comments that you're here. Say hello. Let us know where you are, where you're based. And if you have any questions for me or my guest, welcome everyone. We're just getting peaks of joiners, so I had to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I don't see it on my end. I was wondering who you were
Yeah,
talking to.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you told us a little bit about your origin story, the fact that you were born right after Jesus with no internet, no smartphones, and
Right
everything
after,
like that.
a little further ahead than that.
Slightly after dinosaurs, but I don't blame you because I'm the same. And you're building, and the cool thing is that you're now, and I don't want to sort of spoil too much, but you're now fully into the tech. So you're
Mhm.
into the AI, the SaaS businesses and stuff like that. And I find it very interesting because we tend to think that those projects would come from people who are swimming in those kind of environments.
Mhm.
But the reality is someone that is not into a certain field can still make it and
Mhm.
actually could have great chances of doing it. So I want you to tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. In my thought, I think people still buy from people, and I think as much as you can, I appreciate tech, right? Like I appreciate what it does, and I appreciate it enough to say, how can I use it? I'm not racing to replace myself. I don't know why anybody would want to do that. I think if you're worried about AI, I think I actually, just before I kind of get into it, I'm not sure if you heard the podcast. It's a little bigger than yours. It's the Joe Rogan Experience. He had Jensen Huang on, the CEO of NVIDIA.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
one of the things he said, and I wanted to listen to it because I'm still sort of on the fence with what's going to be going on in the next 2-3 years. But I wanted to listen to it to get his point of view. I think one of his main strengths, aside of probably many strengths, but like one of his main strengths that I appreciate is the ability to explain complex things very simply. And I think that's it's such a skill set to have for anybody that's trying to explain their complex startup, especially as we get into technology. That people are still buying from people. They still need to understand what you do. And it's not enough just to say, oh, I'm a genius tech guy. Like, great, but how can you explain your value? And I was listening to the podcast and you mentioned, it's not that AI is going to take over everything. And a lot of people think it is. It's that, as somebody that's getting into it, you have to figure out, what your purpose is. Like, is it, and he used like medical imaging, where AI, that was one of the first things that AI was doing, was medical imaging. And people thought it was going to take over diagnosis, right? But it actually, over time, over the past, say, 10 years, what it did was just change the way that doctors were looking at these things. Like, it wasn't their job, when it came down to it, to do all these, images. It wasn't their job to do all the work behind generating these images. The AI was doing it. It's a doctor's job to diagnose it. And it's never changed. But they were just doing a bunch of stuff that led up to the final purpose. And I think that was something that sort of, you know, gave me a bit of insight on potentially where things are going. Like, where I want to be is, the purpose is helping businesses improve their post sale work. So anything after the sale. So basically from onboarding, training, um, expansion, all the way to advocacy, helping companies build those things. Because as a company, as say if you're a SaaS startup, or a mature company, if you're not hanging on to companies, if you're not hanging on to your clients, you're not growing. It's as simple as that. I don't care how many logos you're bringing in. If you're losing all the companies because you can't manage them, you can't show them value, you're not going to grow. And so I think, looking back to where technology and AI would go, is that the purpose that I'm trying to provide, or the value that I'm providing, is helping companies generate revenue post sale. How AI can do that, or how technology can do that, is up to me to how to apply that. But my job hasn't changed. So that's the way that I like to look at it. And I think it's, if you simplify it like that, then you can be a little bit less scared of where technology is going, and you can look at it a bit more strategically to say, my role has not changed. It's just, how do I apply technology that's changing to increase the value that I'm providing. I think you're on mute there, Riley.
Yep, touche. Good point.
There you
Yeah, this is a very interesting topic that you just opened. This idea that AI, well, for some people, AI is very scary. For some people, AI is that cool friend that we have. I think it's a typical Schopenhauer-esque situation.
go.
Schopenhauer, famous German philosopher, said every breakthrough idea goes to three phases.
Hmm.
First is considered ridiculous, people
Hmm.
laugh. Then it's considered dangerous, and then it's adopted because it's obvious. Ridiculous, dangerous, obvious.
Hmm.
And it's very funny because those new generations of AI, and I like to say new generations because AI was invented in the 50s. I
Hmm.
remember because I learned about it 20 years ago at university.
Hmm.
But the new generations of AI jump straight away into between dangerous and obvious. And
Hmm.
I have a feeling that very few people consider it ridiculous. It's like,
Hmm.
people have played 10 minutes with ChatGPT know how they can leverage that for
Mm-hmm.
their private life or personal life. So we're now, between those two last segments, dangerous and obvious, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really this conversation is gonna are we gonna evolve between those two states.
Mm-hmm.
It's also very interesting that you personally are not afraid of that because you sort of find a way to leverage it the right way, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
If you can talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I would have been, and the thing is, like, and I'll be honest, like, I don't want to sugarcoat it. And I think there's so many people out there that are blindly, and even I go back to the Jensen Huang interview. I was listening to it driving back from Portland. Actually, it was like a 5 hour drive, and it was a 3 hour podcast. I need something to fill my time, and I think it's a very idealist viewpoint of everything's going to be fine. I think there are going to be a lot of challenges that we're going to have to figure out, especially if you're a founder. Like, you're going to need to be finger on the pulse, and I do believe that if you are rejecting it, then it doesn't care about your rejection, right? It's just somebody's going to be taking advantage of it, and you're just going to fall by the wayside, almost like a company that's not going to generate a website. Like, say back in the mid 90s, when they're saying, oh, you're going to need a website in order to generate business, or to advertise your business, or social media. You can use all these examples. And a company that says, nah, I'd rather not do that. Most of them had to. It's just that some of them did it earlier than others, and they were able to take advantage of it. Then you had some companies that were buying the .coms for $1 million because somebody had bought it already, right, to make money. Remember that?
Yeah.
So they're going to pay the price of for lack of adoption, and I obviously it's just gotten a lot faster these days. Where if you're pushing back on it, it's just going to go past you, and it'll be as quick as that, and you won't really have any time to recover. So I think the biggest thing that sort of has helped me through it is that one of the things that AI can't do is it can't relate to people, it can't show empathy. And I think, going back to, we're still humans, right? We're not androids yet. So, I mean, if you think about all the companies that are out there, you look at a company on the S&P 500, it's worth trillions of dollars, but there's people behind that company. If you work on a project with these companies, you're still dealing with people, you're still dealing with insecurities, people that are afraid for their jobs, people that are underpaid, people that are, just came back from a holiday and couldn't be bothered. You're still dealing with people. And I think it's so easy to forget that we're still humans, through all this technology, through all the people that are behind computers. If you don't figure out a way to understand leadership, if you don't figure out a way to understand empathy, if you don't figure out a way to understand strategy, how to apply certain things, then I just don't know how you're going to like have the ability to apply AI, because that's like, and that's sort of where I'm at this stage now in my career, where I do have that 10 years of leadership experience. And that's why it's like, okay, great, I'm at the perfect spot where I'm not going to reject it, because now my job and what people are going to be looking at for me to do is say, hey, you have the 10 years experience leading people, leading motions, leading strategy. um, so you're in the perfect position to now figure out how to use AI. So I think that for anybody that's coming up and says, you know what, I don't have the ability to get leadership experience now, um, because all the jobs are disappearing. You can't forget that you're still dealing with human beings, and I think you can put yourself in a great position by being the person who still understands that you're not talking to ChatGPT all the time. You are chatting to people that have all these other things going on. So I think that's such an important aspect of it for anybody that's trying to figure out how to apply that. Is that it's the human aspect is not going to go away, at least in my in my lifetime.
Absolutely. I
Mhm.
100% agree with you. And at the end of the day, we still have basic needs that need to be filled that software cannot do. So it would at least
Mhm.
take robots to do that. But at the end of the day, there's something I love. Um, Algorithms are were able to beat humans at chess for a
Mhm.
very long time now. Our iPhones or smartphones are better than us at
Mhm.
chess. It's undeniable. It's undeniable. Probably better than us at Go, but it probably requires more than just a smartphone. But
Mhm.
here's the thing: people still prefer to pay to see two human play chess against each other
Mhm.
than to see two machines play chess against each other.
Mhm.
So we still crave human to human.
Yeah, it's the
Uh,
empathy, it's relatability. It's like it just has a soul to it, and I
yeah,
think that, like, how many of us, call the bank or call any company or phone company and you get an AI bot? How many of, and it's only been around for 2 years now, maybe a year. And already people are complaining about AI slop. It's what they're complaining about. Oh man, I don't want to even hear this voice because I can hear AI from a mile away. I can read AI from a mile away. People know that. Maybe it's going to get a little better, but I think the adoption has been a bit too much for people to sort of slowly get into it, and that's why you see a lot of people pushing back on it, because all you see it do is just provide shorts on YouTube that are just giving you radical opinions on politics. It just doesn't put it in the best light. And I think if going back to like a business application, if you have the ability to see where, hey, the people are going to get annoyed with just talking to a bot all the time. Going back to my story is if I call my phone company, I'm pushing 900 times to get to a human, because I don't even want to waste my time with talking to a bot, because it doesn't have the answers that I need. The only reason I'm calling is that I can't get the information on the website. So I think it's just we're in a weird period of time now where nobody really knows how to use it. We're just trying to save money, apply it wherever, and it's frustrating a lot of people. And that's where we're getting a lot of people that are saying, oh, this is just useless. But again, if you have the ability to step back and say, you know what, yeah, I agree, I don't want to talk to a bot, I want to talk to a human. If I need advanced, if I have an advanced question, I want to just talk to a human right away. But I also think that I don't want to do a bunch of admin tasks. I want to automate a lot of the stuff that I'm doing so I can concentrate on more value added stuff. So it just takes a bit of time to step back, strategize, and that's kind of where people need to sort of lean in on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to rebound to that. If you look at different levels of experience, I love this in the airline industry. You and I travel a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and so you can see if you have a low status with an airline company, you do
Mm-hmm.
everything with a machine and robots. So you
Mm-hmm.
go to the self-check desk, self-check something, you talk to machines and stuff like that. And the
Mm-hmm.
minute you have high status or you purchase like a business class ticket,
Mm-hmm.
you have a dedicated human concierge. You have a human who welcomes you at the desk, who
Mm-hmm.
walks with you, takes your luggage, put there, blah blah blah. And on the plane, you have someone comes to you every 30 minutes to make sure everything is okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so every luxury experience, every white glove experience involves
Mm-hmm.
more humans, and every sort of low ticket, low value experiences are often automated, robotized, and all these kind of things. So you can clearly see where the line is drawn, and you can see that there's a lot of opportunity for humans, because if the simple fact that creating a human to human experience makes it a white glove experience, you can
Mm-hmm.
understand how you can get value from that.
Mm-hmm.
So
And it goes to show,
yeah.
because I was thinking, like, as you were doing that, and for sure we've all had that experience in traveling, and we all just get annoyed at the lack of the, like, I need a human to help me problem solve. Like, and at this stage, it's like if I lose my luggage, I'm not going to talk to a bot about it, who just doesn't care, and that's where the empathy comes in, right? It's like the bot's just like, oh, it's in our terms and conditions that you should have read, 19 pages before you got on the flight. And it was like, no, nobody reads that, but you're a bot and you can't understand this. So, like, it just that part of it. And I'm thinking, when you're comparing them, like, it should be the other way around. If automation was so great, now you'd have the premium experience being automated and quick, and the rest of us would have to talk to miserable human beings. We're like, oh, I don't want to talk to this person, I just want to get on my flight. But it's not that way, right? The white glove experience is, people still want to talk to and deal with people. It's just that companies don't want to pay these people to do it. So I think that the clear choice is that right now AI is used to just saving money, automated certain things, saving money, doing it more efficiently. And I think that's a huge learning for people that are starting the businesses, right? And in customer success, that's one of the things that I'll have to be doing, when I start to generate more of these larger companies that are hopefully going to be coming down the pipeline, is, if you have the money to adopt AI, do it the right way. Don't
Mm.
don't mess up your human relationships trying to save money. Automate where maybe there's no value right now. Automate as much as you can, but understand that you're not creating a better experience.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And it's all about the experience. It's what get people to buy, it's what get
Mhm.
people to stay, it's what get people to recommend and refer more clients. I love that. Rob, I wanna jump into the second part of this show
Mhm.
where you tell us what you are building right now, because I think we've understood where you come from, your level of experience. So what have you built and how did you leverage all that experience in the past to build that thing?
Yeah, so the business is called Growth Pilot. So I'm in the beginning stages. I've been working on it for about a year now. Like I said before, I've been an executive in software as a service for about 10 years now, in a startup environment as well. And and so the I've been working on this as a side project for a little while, and kind of getting more into building it up, and getting into taking on projects and engagements, doing a bit of fractional stuff. But it's called Growth Pilot, and essentially what it does is and I've had to pivot actually because I started it during the awkward year when ChatGPT first came out, when people are still figuring out, okay, what's AI going to be doing, and I was like, basically, I was one of those guys that was asking AI what AI is going to do, and I'm not sure if I'm getting straight answers, but I've had to pivot to kind of figure out, okay, what's CS, what's customer success going to be like? Because I've alluded to it many times. I'm a customer success executive, and I have been for the last 10 years, and a lot of it's changed. That's the biggest change that was going on, say 5 years ago. A lot of companies, a lot of software as a service companies that rely on these recurring membership fees. That's how their business is generated. One of the long-standing things in consulting is you're only as good as your last month, right? Unless you're
Mm.
one of the big four. But even then, they're out there grinding, selling projects because they have no, there's no recurring membership, there's no recurring subscription. So a lot of companies are getting into SaaS, software as a service. Even if you do provide consulting, they still need that revenue coming in every month, every year. So, and when you have that, when you have those post-sale relationships, you can't just provide support anymore. You can't be a passive support provider. You need to have people that are working in your company that are actively working with your clients toward the, what's the client's goal, what's that value that they're trying to get at your software. Because if they don't get it, then they're out, right? They don't need to stick around anymore. Because oftentimes with the business model, how that's changed is you're not buying a CD anymore. You're not buying an implementation that takes 3 months. You're not buying a CD implementation that takes 3 months. You're not buying a support package and then see you later vendor. You're on your own. Um, right now, what you're doing is companies are reducing that initial fee to get involved with you, because you're saying, well, I'm going to implement my software. Sometimes there's no fee. It's just sign up for a monthly fee. Sometimes it is a bit of an implementation cost, but it's usually lower, than it was before. Some of these softwares were getting, on-premise software was being implemented for over $1 million. Now that same software is probably going to be a couple 100,000 to get started, and they're going to make their money. The companies are going to make their money on the long term, right? Over the next 2-3 years, they need to keep that company in order to make any money. So it becomes very important for companies now to not just provide support, not just tech support, like they were used to. Hey, if something breaks, call us, we'll fix it. They need people, like I said, that are actively working on how are you getting value from our software? Are you reaching the goals that our sales team told you would? Because like I said, if they're not sticking around very long, and the company is going to be losing some money. So that's sort of where I've seen it go for the past, say, 10 years, and I've seen that shift from reactive support to proactive success. And that's really where Growth Palette is situated, is helping companies that are signing these deals, whether you're a startup trying to get your motion started, if you're struggling with it onboarding, which a lot of companies are, struggling with training, struggling with that change management. How do I become a coach with my client now? A lot of these processes are incomplete. A lot of them are broken, or worse yet, non-existent. So that's kind of what Growth Palette Consulting does right now.
Absolutely. I love everything you just said. And it's the classic issues I see with a lot of startup founders.
Mhm.
So definitely it's onboarding, retention, or proving that they're delivering value to their clients. And as you mentioned, the consulting business I have no shame saying the consulting business is rigged.
Hmm.
Uh, for me, most of them are vampires. The longer they just sucking on their clients' blood, the better for them it is. The
Hmm.
better it is for them. Uh, and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make
Hmm.
any sense. You're supposed to fix a problem for your customer and
Hmm.
take a percentage of that value.
Hmm.
If your business model sits on infinite T and M, so time and I'm losing my words. Time and material
Hmm.
and infinite hours of infinite billable hours so
Hmm.
that you can just maintain your business, then there's something wrong. And
Yeah.
we've reached a time where there's this notion of market sophistication.
Hmm.
So people became aware. So people
Hmm.
had access to information and knowledge, and they became aware of these things. And so now they purchase better, or at least they know what they're looking for. They have a better idea of what they're looking for.
Hmm.
They've been burned before, and so they're now really cautious with what they're buying. And so it's important to have that data and be able to provide that data to them.
Hmm. Yeah, and
100%.
kind of going back to the psychology part of it, and the more that you like I've been at the leadership side of it. I've that's where I currently am, and I've also been at the project management side of it, where you're working with users, and I still maintain access to users to this day, because I think it's very important to understand, like, a project is made up of a bunch of stakeholders usually. There's not just one. It's you have the champion, you have the person who's bankrolling it, usually the executive, the champion that likes your product, that you've met at a conference or something, who maybe is a director. You have stoppers, you have people that are active pushing against you, and I've encountered many of those. And then you have the user that's maybe going to adopt your product, but doesn't have any money in his wallet to pay for it. So there's so many different people that you have to please, and as a as somebody that's in customer success, you can make the user happy by responding to a ton of support emails, and the user is great. I don't like the thing's breaking, but you're responding every single day. But then you talk to the champion who's under pressure for this thing to work, to start seeing results. And then you have the VP who's saying, hey, I invested $1 million in this, and I'm not seeing anything. Like, I see a bunch of support tickets that you're closing. Great. Like, you guys are great at reacting to that, but your product is not doing what we bought it for. So, and you don't have anybody actively working towards, adding value, like, you're basically, as a support customer support advisor, whatever you want to call it, within an organization. You're not just there to commercialize the account. You're there to actually give them value, to say, hey, what if you're looking to save time internally, how do we get you to save as much time as you can? How do we do that as quick as possible? And how do we motivate you to use our product? Because at the end of the day, if you don't use it, they're churning the next opportunity they get.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100% agree with you. I remember back then when I was doing a little bit of international consulting.
Mhm.
One of the
Sounds good.
strategy one of the strategy of the company was to send me to clients um, that were about to reach the end of their contract.
Hmm.
And so essentially like a sort of rescue mission
Hmm.
where, and they would also send me to clients where the deadline was short, was coming, sorry, and they had very low usage of our services.
Hmm.
And I found it fascinating because I was looking at it, I was constantly like going on those rescue missions,
Hmm.
doing the job and coming back. And when we were sort of debriefing the stuff, they would say, okay, what can we do better? And I was constantly giving them the same answer. I said, like, don't wait for that time. Like,
Hmm.
get the list of those clients and work on their success before the deadline is coming. And
Hmm.
what was surprising me in this is that it was not obvious to them.
Hmm.
It nearly looked like a smart plan, and I was thinking, how is that even how are you guys not surprised that I'm saying something so basic?
Hmm.
But it's not the case. It's
Yeah.
definitely not the case.
And I would say, that that's such a great point, is that a lot of people, a lot of companies do those rescue missions because they caught off guard. And I think it's not for a lack of thinking it's important to my thinking, and then we can kind of go back to AI in a second with this. But to my thinking, it's just a lack of resources. Like say a company is in massive growth, they're acquiring logos. A lot of times they put the emphasis on the sales team acquiring logos, and then that's great, boom boom boom, we got a ton of clients coming in, but they don't really understand that, hey, you need to keep these clients happy for 2-3 years before you make any money. And if you're a public company, great, they'll invest in you because the metrics are a little wonky, but you don't actually have to keep that money coming in. But that's such an important point, I think, because they don't not believe in it. They just don't have the resources to execute it properly. And I think that's sort of where somebody like myself would say, you know what, obviously it's important. Somebody from that 1,000-foot view of looking at the forest, kind of seeing everything. You're going to see that. But I think when you're in the company, that's where AI, where a lot of these automated, pings can come in, right? When it comes to adding value, when it comes to, really truly adding value to a company. It doesn't take a huge elaborate bot. Really, all it is looking at, hey, before things get out of hand, let's look at logins, let's look at sentiment, let's look at your scores, let's look at all the typical metrics that you would, but let's automate them into a typical score that you can say, what's the health of this account? 6 months before renewal, 3 months before renewal. And if there's anything that comes out, your CSMs see it, it's automated, and you don't have to sort of look through the CRM, look what the sentiment said, what the customer said last week or last month when you last talked to them, look at those support tickets, look at everything together, get those automated pings set up so that 6 months before renewal, you kind of have an idea of where they stand.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing is that's a behavior that we have in the everyday life, but that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't transition properly in the business life.
Mm-hmm.
The example I always pull out is the GPS, or when you are in a new city or visiting a city and you want to go from point A to point B,
Mm-hmm.
you constantly check your metrics. You
Mm-hmm.
constantly check your GPS and you refresh it. And the GPS checks your position every seconds or milliseconds, whatever, to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you're not spending 10 minutes walking in the wrong direction, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're cooking, because it's a cooking show, right? Because it's a cooking
Mm-hmm.
show, right? You constantly check the temperature of your dish, if it's going to the right direction, if it's not being overcooked or overheated.
Mm-hmm.
So you're tasting it, or you're just testing the temperature, or you're smelling it, and you're doing that you're doing it frequently and often, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't want to mess it out. You just don't want to leave something in the oven for 5 days and just
Yeah.
checking out like that.
Yeah.
But we
And the
don't
thing
do
is
this.
too.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just want to say, and we don't do that with the business, but that's a
Mhm.
natural behavior that we have.
Yeah. And what I was going to add to that is, so many times, I think in most businesses, especially in mine, because mine was more of a financial tool where customers would save money, and that's really what most, it's either you save time, you save money. Um, a lot of that though is not instantaneous. Like companies get their quarterly, their monthly, their quarterly, so it takes a bit of time for them to realize value in your system, and that's even if they're doing it properly. Some companies, they completely miss the boat in terms of evaluating success. So that's another reason why you shouldn't wait till the last minute, because if you wait until the last 3 months and you start talking to them, even if they're receptive to you, they won't even see the benefit, even if you do everything correct. By the time your renewal comes around, they can say, well, great. Like if I do everything right in your system, I still have to wait for the next quarter to see what my results are before I even know if I'm going to use you again. And if that period of time, if your renewal date is in between those dates, like, well, I can't see an improvement. I don't know if I need you. We didn't do this early enough. So you have to realize that there's a bit of a lag between, doing things right and the company getting the benefit of it. And there's also budget periods, right? There's budget periods where, you have to understand your client's budget, the client's fiscal year. When is their budget decided? Because if your renewal is like midway between the year, they've already decided 6 months ago that they want to get rid of you. And I've had clients fly me down to Scottsdale to tell me in person that they weren't going to renew, and I was like, why am I here? Why am I here today? If you already, I think it was more of, it was a new hire. We was a relationship we had for a number of years, and I don't think he was a good person, but they they need to know this. They've made their decision 6 months ago. So if you're just playing catch up, they're like, hey man, we decided 3 months ago that we're not going to use you. We just didn't tell you until now because we didn't have to. We still paid for the product. We still want to use it. And they'll give you all the right things, right? Logins, all that'll be good. Maybe they'll give you a good sentiment. They'll give you a good score because the users are happy, but the VPs are like, hey, we've decided 3 months ago, we're going with another system.
It's exactly that customer at a
Mhm.
restaurant that says nothing throughout the dinner but gives you a $0 tip.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then you just discover when it's too late and there's nothing
Yeah.
you can do about it.
Yeah. You don't know the
Absolutely.
metrics. You're not looking for the right things, right? You see the things that are just vanity, right? That's where a lot of customer success teams or a lot of companies, they look at vanity metrics, the old school vanity. Whereas, hey, I just closed 10 tickets within a day. I'm going to call them right now and see how happy they are. I'm like, yeah, they're great. I'm very happy because you did this. That has nothing to do with the value that they're getting from your system.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, it just, some of these things are just vanity metrics, and they catch you by surprise because you're not looking at the right things.
Absolutely. And I love what you said. Like the 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 sale is the beginning of the journey, not the
Mm,
end of it. I
yeah.
remember I was working with a couple of clients, and at some point I had to stop working with them because they had this crappy mindset where the sales would do whatever it takes to close the deal,
Mhm.
even if it's not deliverable, and then they would just take their bonus and just pass it on to the engineering team, and they'll just let the guys figure it out. And
Yeah.
I remember like one of the guys said, okay, if you're sales, if you want to be successful in this company, sell whatever the F you want, go for the sale, and
Mhm.
the engineering team will figure it out. And this
Mhm.
is the craziest thing. Like, yes, it's gonna work for a quarter, it's gonna work for a semester, it's gonna work for a year or two, but
Mhm.
ultimately, outside of that, you're just gonna kill your company and kill your
Yeah.
reputation.
Because you're not even making money, and I think an important part of that too is like you're not only making your clients upset, and a lot of these industries are small industries, and if you get yeah, eventually it's not going to take long for you to get reputation of a company that doesn't follow through with its
Mm,
promises. Like the sales team is going to promise you the world, they'll hand it off to the success team and the developers to overcome whatever they had to say to sell the deal. And now it's not their problem anymore. They've made their commission. But the thing is now you not only have basically the post sale motion has two options. They have, the first one is to say, you know what, we don't actually offer that, or the product doesn't do that. The biggest one is, it's not a custom product. Like every company, they want the cheapest possible deal you can provide them, but when you actually sell the product, now it's a custom build. And you're like, okay, that's not what we agreed on. If you want a custom build, I'm going to bill you 10 times more because my developers are making 300K a year, and it doesn't come cheap. So that's like the biggest thing where I've found is that, oh, you need this field, or this is green, you want it to be white. This is like, the users have all these expectations, right? When they finally get into the system, or there's data that's missing, or companies can't give you the right data, so you have to overcome it. Um, and it costs you so much money if you're the company that's like, hey, as long as I make the sale, then I'm making 100K, and my revenue, my cash flow is fine. But now for the next 2 or 3 years, you're getting hit up by the users. You're spending, your dev team is probably making more than your sales team per hour, and you're having to basically overcome all these things with dev hours. So you're not only destroying relationships, you're also not making any money because your margins are getting eroded, like overcoming a lot of these gaps that they're having. So it's such a short term, mindset to think that, oh, I just need sales. You do need sales, but if your product is good enough, how you're selling a whole package. You're not just selling the product. Like you said, it's the start of the journey. Once you make that sale, it's really you're getting the customers to that point. Now you have to actually show up, and be a partner, not just go and blow your commission and hope you can have a company to come back to you next month.
absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. And you never fully know what's on your customer side. It could be like a 100K deal. For you, it's an extra 0.5% in your revenue. For the company that you're charging, it could be like 5% of their margin, and they will fight for an extra 5% of their margin. So you have to be very, very careful. I've seen people being burned by an extra sale because they were greedy. So
Yeah.
it's very dangerous. People should be careful about that.
Yeah. And watch out
I want.
for scope creep as well. That's
Oh,
that's a
absolutely,
big one. That, I mean,
absolutely.
you have to have everything in your statement of work, in your proposal. And a big thing for a lot of companies is that they say, well, as long as I get them to sign the deal, I can deal with support later. And that just doesn't work. Like you have a sales team, but then as soon as you sign the deal, now basically your entire company's at their disposal. And a lot of clients, they don't care, I got a sales meeting tomorrow that I need to catch up with. They don't care that you have other clients to service. It's not their problem, right? It's not their problem what your company is doing. All they want is say, I signed this deal, you told me this, and I'm going to try to get this. So I think, like, be very wary that, ask yourself, what is growth? What is success when you're dealing with these companies? And, like, try to, we all try to sell the sizzle, and, the sales team, they really have to spice things up when they're, especially these days, you're for a competitive industry. But to go over and above to where you're cannibalizing the rest of your business, it's a tough thing for them to not do. But as a founder, leader, you have to sort of see them both, and ensure that you're putting the proper priority on your post sale, because that's really where the money's generated.
Absolutely, 100%. Don't even get me started on the scope creep. I think we can do an entire episode
Yeah.
just on that. Before we just diving a bit more, I want to take a quick pause to welcome everyone who's joining, because we're still getting joiners every minute. It's not stopping. I love that. So welcome to the Startup Kitchen Show, episode number 9. Today we are with Rob. Rob, can you quickly repitch
Mhm.
Growth Pilot for people who just joined in the last minutes?
Yeah, sure. So basically, so Growth Pilot is a consulting company. It's a customer success and a post sale consulting company that's really at its core meant to turn the typical support into a revenue generating machine. That's really at its core. That's what it's meant to do. And I do a lot of work with companies, like I said, that are just starting out, that are that maybe just have a couple of support people who may or may not be just dev. So it's really just helping companies, whether they're starting out or whether they're I've seen mature companies, like I said, that do not have a proper success platform, proper success, dedicated success personnel to keeping their existing clients happy. So that's really what Growth Pilot is to come in, and whether it's fractional leadership, whether it's training on how to set up a motion, whether it's looking at specific areas. Usually when I see companies, especially mature companies, it's always one thing that's really bugging them. It's whether it's they're losing a lot of companies through training, they're losing a lot of companies or their clients through onboarding, or they're just not getting renewed. The year later or 2 years later, they're churning, or maybe they're using them, but they're not really advocating. They're not out talking about you. Because that's a big thing too, right? Referrals are such a huge way of getting business. It lessens the load on your sales team. So that a lot of that comes through happy clients, right? And customer success is a big part of that. So wherever you are in the customer journey, whether you have one set up or you're just getting started, that's kind of where Growth Pilot comes in, and kind of from an advisory standpoint, fractional leadership, or just project based.
Love it. I want to make sure everyone gets it, because I think it's a fundamental notion. So I'm gonna ask you
Mhm.
I'm gonna ask you that slightly differently. Can you explain to our audience, as simple as possible, what is customer success and why it's important for startup founders, specifically like my audience?
Mhm. So plainly speaking, customer success is a proactive motion where, we all know what support is, right? We've all called a support line. Uh, Customer success are the people calling you. So they're not waiting for you to have an issue. They're calling you and saying, how can I help you reach your ROI? How can I help you reach your goals? That's really the fundamental difference, right? And that's where a lot of companies, they need support, because if a product breaks, they need to react to it and provide technical support. But not a lot of companies really, put a lot of emphasis on, okay, I have you as a client. I need to make sure that you get the value that you were promised during the sale, because I cannot renew your contract, whether it's monthly, yearly, quarterly, whatever it is. I shouldn't expect for you to keep paying me unless you can realize the value that you bought the product for. So customer success is meant to ensure that the clients are seeing value, so that they continue to renew and hopefully expand through cross sells, through additional services, things like that. Because with a growing company, whether you're mature, whether you're a startup, you need that foundation of clients. If you're churning clients, and this is especially important for SaaS startups, it's not enough to just get business. And I know as a founder, you're going to be happy just getting new logos, generating business, new clients. But if those clients are falling off 3 or 4 months later or a year later, you're not making any money. Because it takes you so much to actually sell the cost of sales. You have to add that in. The cost of actually delivering the initial product is usually more. A lot of SaaS companies, they invest in their partnerships now. They don't just, if it costs you, say, $100,000 of labor to implement your software, and that's all of your costs, your office, everything included, you're probably not going to make a single bit of money on the implementation. The way you make money is on the relationship. So every year that client stays with you, you're making more money. So that's really customer success in a nutshell, where it's looking at what's truly fundamental in growing revenue, in relationships and in software as a service, specifically speaking.
Absolutely. I love this. Let us know if you watching this right now, if it was clear or not, if you want to dive a bit more into customer success, or if you had any other question for our guests. For me, it was clear, but I'm pretty much sold to the concept. And so to go back a little bit on Growth Pilot, can you tell us a little bit more about the company, the business, the number of customers that you have? What is that you're doing with all of that?
Yeah, I mean, we're just getting started now. So there's a couple of things. I won't get into the details too much. I'll invite you guys to follow me, Growth Pilot Consulting, on LinkedIn. That's more of the consulting arm of what I'm doing. So that's, again, fractional leadership. That's going into looking at the customer journey, revamping strategy, building out motions, leveraging technology, AI, these types of things. So whether it's a small project to come in and do an audit to see what's up, because I've talked to a lot of companies that are just missing, maybe 1 or 2 pieces. They don't have the right people, involved. They're looking at the wrong thing. They're not sure how to fix a certain area of their business because they're too busy running it. Sometimes you just need that sort of 10,000 foot view, or whatever you want to call it, the bird's eye view, of all your processes. There's a lot of audits that I've built, a lot of playbooks and audits that I've built over the last 10 years that I've been able to use, that, only through experience do you get these things. You can ask ChatGPT if you want to, but it's going to completely miss the human aspect of, does it work? What's been your experiences? How have you failed? How have you won? I think you still need to leverage experience on these types of things. So that's really kind of at its core what Growth Palette is. Now, there's also, one of my passions is teaching and generating content. Like I said, I've pre-COVID, I used to speak at a ton of events. I'm still on a board in Toronto that we do educational meetings and put together content and stuff like that for people to learn and increase the value that they provide their employers, and whether they want to leverage that to start a company in the future. So part of what I'm doing at Growth Palette is what I'm working on now. It's not launched yet, but it's called the Revenue Academy. And so I think, when it comes to content, I've sort of learned this over the past year. When it comes to content generation, building a community is one of the most important things you can do, right? So we talked about this at the very beginning of the podcast, networking, community. We have nonstop knowledge at the tips of our fingers now, whether it's Google, YouTube, AI, you name it, there's knowledge. We can type it 2 minutes. I can answer any question that you have in theory, but the connection, the networking, the ability to have a community to bounce ideas off, I think that's really where, from a B2C perspective, so like if I'm dealing with consumers, that's kind of where I would like to also access that. I'd like to work with companies, but I do feel very passionate about creating groups of people that are looking for, knowledge, right? I love learning, working with founders, but what happens if you're a customer success manager that just got out of school, that's looking to make as much impact as they can working with a company? A lot of these things you only get through experience. And so that's called the Revenue Academy. And it's been made up of courses. So I've just put together about 12 courses. It'll be a community. We'll do some certifications. I do one-on-one mentoring as well for certain people. So that's sort of the different things that I'm up to on my end. A couple of clients so far, but we're just kind of ramping up at this point.
I love this. I love this. Do you mind giving us a little bit of flavor, a little bit of a tapas, I would say, about this to our audience right now? What could you share with us? What would be the 3 actionable ingredients startup founders could implement to either build a customer success process or improve it?
Okay, the first thing, I guess I'll start on I'll use the customer journey sort of as a benchmark. Again, the customer journey is really how your customer progresses through the different stages, right? They don't just stay in a single stage post sale. They're not just your client. So they usually sit within, onboarding, initial engagement, you have adoption, you have expansion, and usually advocacy. And there's a few more in there that you can, depending on the company, that you could be using. But the point is that you build a relationship and you're constantly moving forward. So using that as a reference, I think the first thing that I would say is look at your sales, like your sales handoff. So the promises that your sales team is making, especially if if you're working with a SaaS product, the sales team is making certain promises that they're saying the product is going to do. They're trying to solve a pain, right? You're basically solving a pain. You're not selling features. Your client has a pain that they're trying to solve, and you are applying that prescription. You are giving them the tool to do that. So I would look at whether your pre-sale, your sales team is aligned with your post-sale. So do your customer success, does your support team, does your customer success team, or anybody that's looking after your clients, do they know what the sales team has promised them? What is the goal of the deal, right? That's such a basic thing that I think is missed, because it's somewhere in the CRM, like you're combing through the CRM, looking at conversations. You shouldn't have to do that. You should have a clear process of saying, here, this is the executive summary. Maybe you have the salesperson and the new support person on the same call, the kickoff call. And you say, just so we're all aligned, this is what we promised you. This is what our plan forward is, to make it crystal clear, what the goal is and what you're going to be working with them towards. Because that's, again, the start of the relationship is then. It's not the end of, okay, we sold you, see you later. Now everything really truly starts to kick off. So that's the first thing, is looking at that handshake of the promises that you're making and the value. The second one I should say is, how is your onboarding helping them reach that value as quickly as possible? So are you bringing your clients on? Your onboarding doesn't have to be uber quick, but the value that they get from the system, the quicker that is, the more successful your project is going to be. And that's just a universal metric. As quick, I'm not saying rush it, but I'm saying if you can get to a point where you can show the client value as quickly as possible. Sometimes it's overnight. Sometimes you got to implement a software and it's 3 months. That's fine. It's up to your software. But just understand that the quicker you're able to give them value, the more happy they're going to be, the more adoption, or the quicker they're going to adopt the product, and the more value they're going to get out of it. So that's what I would say, is tailor your onboarding to try to get that time to first value as quickly as you can. I think that's one of the most important metrics in customer success and software, is that time to first value. Because sometimes they don't get any value at all, and they're gone. That's a very fragile point in time for a relationship, especially if you're kind of on the lower end of the price point. If it doesn't cost them a lot to just get rid of you, if they don't have value, sometimes you have a bit more leeway if your product is very expensive. But universally true, as short as you can make that ton of first value. And the second one, or sorry, the third one.
The third one, yeah.
The third one, yeah, I'm counting backwards now. The third one, I can give you 5 or 6, but the third one is, by the way, go to my LinkedIn page because I'm also on YouTube as well. So if you want these kinds of insights, I'm really stepping on my social media
Don't
game.
worry, I'll get to it right after.
All right. So the third one is, I'm trying to prioritize which one I'm going to tell you, but the third one I would say, one that's typically missed is advocacy. So again, use it as a growth engine, not just when it comes to cross-selling and expansion. Making sure you're having your clients, getting them to a point where they're advocating for you. So, again, I used to take clients to conferences. That was one of the requirements for me to speak at a conference, is to bring a client with you and have them, give you some insight on a project that you've done. Really start to generate these success stories. Use your clients as a way to generate more business, because the more happy customers you have, the more customers you can have business cases for, use cases for. It's going to lessen the load on, as a founder, for you to generate more deals from scratch, your sales team. It's going to make your cost of sales go down because you're not having to spend all that money to generate new deals from scratch. So I think you leverage your client base to generate more sales for you, and make sure they're all advocates.
Absolutely. So if I summarize this a little bit,
Mhm.
the way to implement or improve your customer success with your business, whether you have an established company or a startup, is number
Mhm.
one, make sure the promise you sell is delivered at the other
Mhm.
end of the pipeline. So
Mhm.
make sure you are actually delivering on your promise.
Mhm.
Number two, make sure you're properly onboarding people so they get 100% of the knowledge or value experience right from the start. So
Mhm.
there's no crazy learning curves before they get stuff
Yeah,
out of it.
well, it's so the first one, I would just preface that it's making sure you understand. So the customer success team, just making sure they understand what they're doing. There's never a situation where you're going to have to deliver value the next day, but a lot of the times they're just coming in blind. And you talked about a situation where the company just didn't care, right? And that's a handoff that doesn't exist, right? But there's handshakes that say, hey, good, good luck. Here's what I promise. Here's the deal. But I think that there should be a little bit more alignment on that. And that's, I think, is just improving the alignment so that the customer success team knows what they're doing moving forward. And then, yeah, the onboarding, like you said, is just, putting them in a position where you're making it simple, and that was a big learning actually too, that I'll be brief with this, but when it comes to training and onboarding, it's sometimes you get too deep into features, and you put on your sales cap and you say, oh, I need to sell this thing again. No, you don't actually have to sell it again because you've already sold it. What you need to do is make sure that what they sign the deal on, like what they sign for, they get. You don't have to sell it again. You just have to make sure that
Deliver.
you deliver your promise, and you're not talking about features anymore. And that's where a lot of founders, they can get into the feature dump on the users, and the users are sitting there, hey, I don't have time for all this. I literally need to use one aspect of your system. I don't care about 90% of it. So as a founder or somebody that's in customer success, learn how you can drive value for each one of your users and your customers. Know that you're dealing with different stakeholders. Your users don't care about your features. They care about what they need to use. Your champions and your VPs care about the results. So take a step back. Obviously, it's your baby as a founder. You're proud of your product, but take a step back, understand who's using your product, and say, I'm going to deliver you value as quickly as I can. And sometimes less is more.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the third step was advocacy, and it's essentially build on the shoulders of your successful customer.
Yep,
Yeah. Did
100%.
I get it right? Can I get a
You got
degree?
that one. Yep, you got that. That was a great analogy. We're all standing on the shoulders of giants, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. And there are a couple of more elements, but I'm gonna keep those ones private. And if you want to know them, you'll have to reach out to Rob. So, Rob, how can we reach out to you, and how can we get the next three attributes of good customer success?
I would say if you're looking for this kind of content, like I said, I'm keeping up with my social media game, especially with the Revenue Academy. That's exactly what it is. So I'll be releasing a lot of this stuff to sort of generate interest in one-to-one mentorship and coaching and these courses. But I would say the best way to figure what I'm up to is going to LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit, so Growth Palette Consulting, catch me on there. And I would say I'm on Instagram as well under the Revenue Academy, and again on YouTube as the Revenue Academy. So they're split up. I'm trying to go to B2C with my social media because I think people make up companies, right? And people are the ones that are on Instagram, they're on LinkedIn, they're on YouTube looking for insights. And if I can generate some B2B business that way, talking to founders through Growth Palette. But a lot of my content is under the Revenue Academy, which is again on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
That's it. Now you know. Feel free to reach out to him. Don't hesitate. The Revenue Academy on LinkedIn or on YouTube or on Instagram. That's the end of the show. We're still getting new viewers every minute, every seconds. I love that. I think one day I'm just gonna go for a 5-hour live and just see what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure we
Um,
can do it.
yeah, why not? This could be a challenge we can build together. I love that. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this session, the Startup Kitchen Show episode 9 with our guest Rob, founder of Growth Pilot. Feel free to reach out on his social media, ask him anything, check his Revenue Academy on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram. And if you have any questions for me, Riley, I'm a startup advisor and investor and the host of the Startup Kitchen Show, don't hesitate as well. You're watching this on one of my social media, so don't hesitate, drop me a message. And if you want to be on my show as a guest, send me a message as well, and we'll see how we can do that. That was the Startup Kitchen Show episode 9. I hope you enjoyed it. See you on the next one. But until then, boom.